Recently, I have been trying a lot of new beauty products, and there's a ton of things that I have just been gravitating towards the last month or so, and I wanted to share those things with you guys. I have a lot of really good picks, so if you're interested in seeing what I've been obsessed with this month, then just keep on watching. So my first favorite is something that I started using as I was working at Ulta this past year, and it is from La Roche-Posay. This whole brand I started using whenever I started working at Ulta, but this is the Lipikar Wash AP Plus Gentle Foaming Moisturizing Wash. I don't know if I said that in the right order, but this is the AP Plus Wash. It's just like this creamy consistency in here, and originally I used this specifically for my body just as a body wash, but you can also use this as a face cleanser, which is what I have been using for the last like 2 months or so. So I was traveling at the beginning of September, end of August, and I brought this just for my face and my body. This was like my dual product for that, as well as my husband's. I love a good foaming cleanser on the face and on the body. I like my body wash to be really sudsy and like foamy, and this gives me the perfect amount of foam without being overly drying, because sometimes things that foam up really like well are almost overly cleansing, you know what I mean? But this is actually really nice. It's made for dry to extra dry skin, so it does bring in a lot of moisture to the skin. This is a really good go-to for morning or night routines. I find that it's a really good like reset cleanser if I want to, like if my skin is irritated at all, or if I feel like I need just like some gentle cleansing, this is the cleanser that I would go for, and I really love it. It's a huge bottle, honestly. I think it's around like $16 at Ulta, and you can use coupons on it. Next, I wanted to talk about the brand Costa Brazil. So I actually have 4 products here from them that I've been using consistently this last month or so. They did send these for me to try out, but I wanted to talk about just how they've been doing on my skin with you guys. First up, I have this Soul Sunlight Body Oil, and this is just like the mini size, and all of the products have this little rubber boot, which I think is so beautiful, and it's so nice to just like put out on your vanity. So you can see when you go on Costa's website that a lot of their products have a blend of vitamins, omegas, and fatty acids, which are really hydrating and very beneficial to the skin. So that was my first like, ooh, I want to try this, you know? I really like the texture of this. I'm not the type of person that likes really greasy body oils. I like something that's more of a dry oil that dries down on the skin but still gives me like the glow of an oil, you know what I mean? It has a little bit of like the shimmer in it, but it's not glittery, and with that mixed with the actual oil texture, it makes your skin look so beautiful, and it like shines. So you can see here, it almost looks like just a clear body oil, but if you really look at it, there's like very light flecks of almost this gold sheen that looks so beautiful on the skin. This body oil specifically feels really, really hydrating because of those vitamins and fatty acids, and it has a very, very light scent to it. It's almost like an herbal scent, and it's not like overpowering, doesn't smell like a perfume or like give you a headache or anything like that. And my favorite thing about this oil is that it dries down, like I said, and it doesn't stay super greasy. So you can see it gives you a little bit of that sheen and that shine, but it's also going to hydrate and not just like sit on top of the skin. So I really enjoy this oil. Okay, next I'm going to talk about another oil, but this is an anti-aging facial oil. So even though I'm a normal to oily skin type, I really love using facial oils, especially at night. But this one is really great because I can actually use this at night as well as in the morning without it irritating my skin or like clogging my pores. This is the Kaya anti-aging oil, and it has a blend of different oils. It has vitamins, lipids, and fatty acids, so it's going to give you a lot of hydration. My favorite thing about this oil is the fact that I can use it during the day as well as nighttime. This is the only oil I feel comfortable doing that. I just put like 2 drops on the back of my hand and I rubbed it in, and it's been like maybe a minute, and I feel like it's already drying down onto the skin, and it's just leaving me with a lot of moisture. Like you see all of that hydration. I'm looking at it in the camera right now, and it looks wet and it looks hydrated, but it doesn't feel greasy at all. So if I'm using this during the day, I will mix this with my moisturizer, maybe like 1 or 2 drops, and then I'll spread it all over my skin. But at night, I'll just put it in the palm of my hand after my skincare routine, and I'll just pat it in completely and let it dry on the skin. And it's beautiful. I love it. You only need a tiny bit, so I feel like this bottle is gonna last me a really long time. So the next product I have from Costa Brazil is this hydrating facial cleanser, and this is a really nice first cleanse. I would say that this works the best to remove makeup. I'll pump like 1 or 2 pumps into the palm of my hand, and then I'll rub it in to my dry skin. So I'll use it to, again, do it as a first cleanse, and I'll just rub it all over my skin. It has a slight herbally scent to it, so it almost smells like when you're at a spa, which is really nice. I love when products make me feel like luxurious, you know what I mean? It almost like turns into this like slick gel consistency whenever you're rubbing it in. And then once I feel like I really got it into the skin and it's emulsified and taken off most of my makeup, I'll run my hands under water, and then I'll just start adding water very slowly. And as you do that, it becomes more of a slick consistency and it gets a little bit milky. Sometimes cleansers can make you feel really dry. I hate cleansers that do that, but this does not do that. It does take a little while to just like rub it off of the skin, but once you get enough water and you rub it off, it feels very nice and hydrated and cleansed. The last product I have from Costa is probably like the most luxe product I have in my bathroom right now, and it is the body scrub. So this body scrub smells so nice. So there's no added fragrance. It's all like natural fragrance to it, but it's again like a spa treatment. I'm just in love with this luxe packaging. It has that rubber boot all throughout here that almost looks like, you know, a label. It almost looks like a coffee scrub, but it is definitely way more gentle than a coffee scrub. So this does have green coffee and sweet almond oil to soften the skin and to add some radiance. It has those vitamins, omegas, those fatty acids. If you're the type of person that likes something a little bit more soft and gentle on the skin versus like, I don't know, a super rough like salt scrub, this is going to be a really good option for you because it almost feels like you're putting on a very creamy like body wash, but it also has those scrubbing granules in them. It turns into almost this like milky lather when you add water to it, so it feels like you're really cleansing the skin as well as exfoliating it at the same time. The next product I have I actually used for the first time on my TikTok a couple weeks ago, and it is the NYX Plump Right Back primer. This is not new, but the first time I used this was this past month, and I actually really enjoy the way that this feels on the skin. So if you're not a huge fan of super gripping primers like the e.l.f. one or the Milk one, this might be a really good option for you because it does have that gel consistency to it, and it gives a little bit of those gripping properties, but it doesn't feel as hard or tacky of a grip as those other ones that I mentioned earlier. This is nice because it spreads really nicely on the skin. It almost feels moisturizing before it dries down into sort of like this very slight tacky layer, which helps like your foundation and your concealers and all your cream products really grip onto this. It says that it's electrolyte infused. It has potassium, magnesium, B5, hyaluronic acid. Whenever I do add this to my skin, I feel like it does look a little bit plumper, and it just primes the skin really well for the rest of my makeup. I've been enjoying this as a very light primer. I feel like it just adds a little bit more of that staying power that I want a primer to provide. The next products I have are 2 Persona cosmetic sticks. I have been obsessed over these Persona sticks. I really want to get that new color in Jam. But the first one I want to talk about today is the multi-stick in the shade Dune. So this one is going to be more of a bronzer. Actually, it is a bronzer. I think that this is a perfect contouring color for my skin tone. It's just in the middle of cool tone and warm tone. It's a little bit like leaning more towards warm tone, but on my skin, it doesn't look super red or muddy like some warmer toned bronzers can look. It's a very creamy texture, but it also has some slip to it. So whenever you apply this on your face, you get really good pigmentation, but it's also a very, very thin consistency. So it doesn't feel like you're dragging on a bunch of cream product, but when you blend it out, that pigmentation stays. And that's my favorite thing about this, is that the pigmentation will stay where you put it, but when you blend it, it blends so beautiful. So I'm able to get a really nice hard contour line whenever I use this as my contour, but I can also blend it out really nicely all over my forehead and then like my jawline. I've actually also been using this to contour my nose. I've been playing around with that, and I find that this is the perfect shade for that. The second Persona stick I want to talk about is in the shade Teddy, and I've been loving this color. I'm wearing this in conjunction with another blush I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, but this is going to be like a pinky brown shade. It's going to be a little bit more muted if you have a skin tone similar to mine. All of the multi-sticks that I've tried from Persona have that same texture and that same blendability, but I especially love this shade because I just feel like it goes with everything. Like if I'm doing an eye look, or if I want to do some sort of like bold lipstick look, you know, I can wear this and it doesn't like compete with it. These multi-sticks blend really well even on top of powder. So if I feel like I want to intensify my blush after powdering, like if I feel like I've lost a little bit of that intensity, I'll just take this on a brush and just brush it on there and then tap it on the skin, and it looks beautiful. It doesn't move the powder at all, and it just sits nicely right on top. This is from Smashbox and Becca. It's the under eye brightening corrector in the shade medium. So this is not a new product by any means. It was originally a Becca Cosmetics product, but Smashbox inherited it whenever Becca went out of business. So this is going to be the under eye corrector, and as you can see in the pot, it is kind of that peachy tone, but there's a couple things that I really love about this, and one, it's the texture, and two, it's the shade. So talking a little bit about this texture, it is going to be that pot concealer texture where it's a little bit thicker, slightly more dry than just a regular concealer would be. And the reason I think that works for this is because you want to be able to put the product exactly where you want that color correction, and you want to be able to build it, because the whole point of this is to cover up, you know, that darkness or any sort of discoloration that you don't want showing through your makeup. I specifically like to use this on the inner parts of my eyes, on the outer parts, on the corners of my nose, and then this area right here, because I do have, you can still kind of see it, I do have these lines. They're kind of like sallow lines right here. I think they're called Marriott lines, something like that. I feel like recently those areas have just started to look a little bit more like bluish purple, a little bit darker in tone. So using this color corrector has helped a lot, because I'm able to just use a concealer brush and really just tap it into the areas that I want it to be, and just have it concentrated in that area without losing pigmentation. And then I'll use a concealer on top, and then I'll blend it all out together. The tone is a little bit peachy, but it still has a lot of brightening properties to it on my skin tone. Sometimes I find some color correctors are way too orange or way too dark peach for my skin tone, so it almost looks a little bit like splotchy kind of, but this gives me a little bit of brightening plus that color correction, so I like that it's like that dual use. I really enjoy this. Next, I have this Benefit blush in the shade Shelly. This is part of their newer blush collection that they extended earlier on this year. If you're not familiar with Benefit blushes, it does have quite a floral scent to it, so it's not the best if you're sensitive to scents, but I don't find that it lingers on the skin. Whenever I brush this on with a brush, within like a minute or so, that scent is gone. I used to have this holiday like Benefit blush kit, and it had, I think, 6 or 8 blushes in it, and it was just way too strong. The scent of that was insane. I can't do that. So this is described as a seashell pink. On my skin tone, I would say it's more of like a medium pink shade. I find these shades, or pinks in general, on my skin look the best when they have a little bit of that shimmer to the blush, where this one does. It does have a little bit of that shimmer, a little bit of that radiance, because if it doesn't, on my skin tone, it can kind of pull a little bit gray, or it can look quite dry on my skin. But I like this because it gives me a little bit of that sheen. I do have it on today, topping that Teddy stick. This is super long lasting. I find that I can have a full day of makeup and it'll still be on my skin, which is really nice. And the blendability of this is very easy and easy to work with. The pigmentation is really great. I would say just tap in like once or twice, tap your brush off, and then go in, and then just work it up that way. But if you do kind of go a little crazy and heavy-handed, you can always blend it out with a clean brush, or go over it with like your powder brush that has like setting powder or translucent powder or something, and then you should be good to go. Next, we have the LA Girl Shockwave eyeliner. It's a metallic eyeliner in the shade Lullaby. It does have that metallic shade, which doesn't sound appealing when you hear me say that I use it in my waterline, that's the only place that I've been using it recently. Quite metallic. It's very, like, you can see it shining right there in the lights. But in the waterline, it actually makes the waterline look almost wet. I have it in today. In my eyes, I think it makes it look even brighter and whiter. It does have that traditional base of that nude shade, so it works, I think, because it does have that base. But because it does have that metallic sheen to it, it just adds a little bit something extra, and I think it looks so nice. All right, and lastly, we have this Flower Beauty highlight in the shade Opal. Now, if you have not heard about this, it's supposed to be a really good dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury highlighter, and I can concur, this is a very good dupe for it, but there are very obvious differences in my opinion. So first off, it's similar in the way that it locks and unlocks the sponge right there, and it does have that sponge tip, so you would just unlock it and then squeeze it out, apply the product, and then ideally lock it so it doesn't like squeeze everywhere. It is quite shimmery. It definitely has like that metallic sheen to it. And I would say that this is a little bit more opaque in tone than the Charlotte Tilbury one, but when you actually blend it out and you don't have this much, honestly, it looks really nice on the skin. You can see there, as a comparison, that's what that looks like. And I do have it on the high points of my cheeks today. It doesn't have any glitter. It doesn't have any sparkle to it. It really is just that like sheen look to it. I will just take a couple dots here and then I'll blend it out with my finger, and then I'll finish blending it with a sponge. And I find that it looks really, really nice. And I like to use this especially if I want to do like a fresh face look. The only thing is this shade in particular on me doesn't look the best when you use a darker blush. So if you're going to use like a berry blush shade or like a dark red cinnamony shade, this won't look the best for those blushes because it's almost going to look a little too stark in contrast with those blushes. So I like to use this specifically when I don't use blush, or I just use bronzer, or if I'm using like a pinky or peach shade blush. All right, guys, that was everything for this video. Those were all of my favorites for this past month. If we share some of the same favorites, or if there's something that intrigues you that I shared today, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any questions about anything I talked about today, let me know in the comments as well. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's super helpful for me to see what you guys are liking and the type of content that you like. So let me know by liking this video, sharing it, or just let me know in the comments as well. I appreciate all your support. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.